one very important piece was missing, and that piece was the wolf.
I'm even afraid to let my kids go out and gather our chicken egg or feed the pigs.
The Rocky Mountain wolf will be removed from the list of endangered species, and that's when the job will be done.
People got to live on this planet too, and that's where the conflict comes.
They're here and they're going to stay here. I mean, there's no doubt about it, so you might as well learn about them, the truth about them.
You will be able to come here and hear, in these valleys and forests, the howl of the wolf.
The gray wolf is an endangered species with an asterisk. There are many in Canada. There are a few thousand in Alaska. But there are very few here in the Northwest and the rest of the lower 48, at least for now. The same public that once asked the government to slaughter wolves here in the Northwest is now asking to get them back. For the next hour, we'll take a behind-the-scenes look at this historic effort and the controversy that comes with it. Man and wolf share a long, complex history. There is fear, there is love, and there is much in common. Of all of the animals on all of the continents in this world we all share together, it is the wolf that cannot seem to shake the words that follow its every move, words that keep its future most uncertain. Mysterious, mystique, misunderstood.
It's a human nature kind of thing.
The pioneers who settled the New World came here with legends about the wolf that had been passed down from early civilization, and very little of that was positive.
Some of it comes, I think, from our cultural images of wolves, from literature going back to the Middle Ages that shows wolves as almost incarnations of evil.
In the Middle Ages, people used to actually catch wolves, dress them as people, and burn them at the stake. I mean, you know, all this symbolism associated with them. And our ancestors, the colonists, came over with those kind of attitudes. The first bounty on wolves was like in 1620.
Wolves are meat eaters, and they kill what they eat. Part of the early history includes stories from Europe of wolves actually eating people.
Like the Black Plague, where so many people were dying, and they see wolves out there feeding on carcasses, and they didn't know if they actually killed the people or if they were just already dead and being fed on. But those tales really jumped out of Europe, you know, big time. You know, you bring religion into this and Satanism, and I think part of it maybe is the color of their eyes. You know, they look very mysterious and very evil looking, if you will, because of those gold eyes, maybe on a black body. And that was fear. And from ancient man, you know, that's probably just been passed down from generation to generation.
That is to say, from generation to generation of Europeans. Native Americans tell a very different story.
We recognize that prior to the world being ruled by humans, it was ruled by animals, and it's carried forward in our traditions and our cultures. So the wolf and the animal world represents to us our elders and our teachers.
Northwest tribes like the Nez Perce worshipped the wolf and largely lived in harmony with it, and through their generations passed stories of the wolf's many gifts.
Nez Perce people learned because they were such good hunters. So they have a connection. They tell us what things are, and we believe it. They're part of our ways. There's their connection to the circle of life.
A circle of life that for Native Americans and the wolf would eventually be broken. When European and American settlers streamed west, they ejected Native Americans from their land and made dramatic changes to the landscape. Put simply, they believed they had a manifest destiny, and it had to be fed.
Come the agricultural era, that's when the wolf became the demon.
The wolf did attack cattle and sheep. Eventually, the U.S. government would sponsor the mass slaughter of wolves throughout much of the Northwest. They were killed by the tens of thousands. The wolf, once again, was seen as a creature to be feared.
They couldn't catch him.
This is one piece of history that remains difficult to follow. What is fact and what is fiction?
Smart.
In the small Montana town of Stanford, in a coffee shop where people stop to say hello and swap old stories, there is a monument to this day to that early conflict between wolf and rancher.
My God, what he wouldn't tell stories on that wolf was unreal.
Bill Skelton and his old friend Bill Riley have heard about him their whole lives.
But to live as long as he did with as many people after him is unreal.
They're talking about the white wolf, some call Old Snowdrift.
He is a legend.
The legend says he killed thousands of cattle, threw fear into a rough and tumble countryside. He made worldwide news at a time when legends were not easily debunked.
This is the wolf and the two fellows that killed him.
In May of 1930, Old Snowdrift went from stuff of legend to stuffed legend.
Lakeside, California, West Virginia, Illinois.
To this day, tourists still read about the wolf and go out of their way to pay a visit.
And you look at the amount of livestock it supposedly killed, and you really wonder if it killed that many head of livestock.
But wolf biologists say it's more bunk than truth.
I think it was one of those deals where you could pound on your chest and go, oh yeah, I lost 2 or 3 head over here to Old Snowdrift too. And I think everybody got sucked up into it big time.
But biologists worry more about what they call today's misunderstandings.
How long is it going to be before they start killing people?
As the gray wolf and man meet once again in the Northwest.
It's kind of scary. You can't let your kids go out to do their chores.
Still, biologists and wolf supporters say the concern is overstated.
There's never ever been a documented case in North America of a healthy wild wolf killing anybody. And it's behavior. I mean, they're very shy, very timid, very reclusive animal. And unless you really pin one in a corner where they become defensive, I doubt very seriously if a wolf would ever attack anybody.
And now the circle of life may be closing together once again. Native Americans say they feel a rebirth of interest in their culture and heritage. And for the Nez Perce tribe, that means a major role in the return of the gray wolf to the Northwest.
It's like reuniting with a part of ourselves that was lost, that was taken from us, and is now being brought back. It's an important part of our history, an important part of our culture, in recognizing that everything that the tribe and everything that the wolf has been through, that we continue to survive and we continue to maintain who we are.
Like the myths from medieval Europe that continue to follow these wolves, so too now comes political controversy. The battle to bring wolves back to the northwestern United States has raged for a quarter century. It even predates the Endangered Species Act.
Wolf tears chunks and swallows it.
There are many top scientists like David Mechs of the National Biological Service who've dedicated most of their careers to the study of wolves and the fight for their return.
Politicians were pretty good at putting in more and more roadblocks. But on the other hand, the process worked. It just took a little longer than some of us would have hoped.
This is the victory Mechs and other scientists have finally won. A trip to a jagged, brutally cold landscape. You don't necessarily need a compass to get your bearings here. We are heading north, up into the reaches of northern British Columbia, to a place where wolves have kept their standing in nature. They are simply here by the thousands. The U.S. government won special permission from the Canadians to catch a few dozen of those wolves, to kickstart the wolf recovery back in the States. There is only enough money for 2 trips, this will be their last.
We run that wire through and then...
This time of year, the sun waits until the middle of the morning to rise. But in this weather, it doesn't much matter whether the sun's out or not.
The temperature in there says minus 35.
In a nearby hangar, sharpshooters are worried about tranquilizer darts that are freezing in midair.
We take these heat packs, activate them just by exposing to air and crushing them, keep them in there.
I don't have one of those nice little boxes, so I just slide them into my gloves and hang on to them until the very last second, then stick it in the gun.
Normally, they'd call it off for the day when it's 40 below zero outside.
About 20 miles over here.
But here, the meter is running. It's now or never.
We've got two pilots from Alaska that are excellent wolf trackers.
Yeah, we're just throttling them right now.
4 down here. 50 miles away from that hunting ground, a different part of this large team waits anxiously for their chance to get into the game.
Next to any veterinarian, there's going to be a stethoscope.
They are experts of a different kind.
Rabies vaccine.
Veterinarians, doctors, and other scientists, most of them volunteers. They must quickly transform this warehouse into a MASH unit. Darted wolves will be brought here within an hour of capture and get quick, first-class care.
We saved the life of a wolf last year. We had a dart that entered the lungs and produced a collapsed lung, and they were actually able to inflate the lung, and the animal's running around in Yellowstone now, alive and well.
They will try to be non-threatening hosts.
We darken the entire pen, and that tends to make the wolves much more calm than if they can see out anywhere.
Moose and deer that died on the Alaskan highway will feed the captured predators before their trip to their new home in the United States. Back in the air and high above the mountains, the hunters are now suddenly seeing signs that they're getting close. This is a fresh wolf kill, probably a moose calf. And there are tracks leading away in the soft snow. Suddenly, there's a flash of tan against the white blanket, and the chase is on. The soft snow acts like the wolf's ball and chain. But this is not as easy of a chase as it might look. The darts are designed for minimum injury, but a poor shot can puncture a lung or cause some other fatal injury. This wolf gets away, and the hunt continues.
Joe's wolf hunt. They're still cruising the trees over there.
Soon there's another one flushed into a sparse grove. Again, 4 feet of powder snow becomes a trap.
There's a wolf.
There in the center right of your screen. The dart this time is dead on. And now the clock is ticking.
This is a big fella.
The wolves that are shot are in a deep slumber, but only for so long. There is much to be done before they wake up.
All the way across.
It's definitely an adrenaline rush when it all starts happening. And you feel like you're definitely part of a MASH unit.
They're checking first to make sure the wolves are okay.
5, 651. There's a sigh. 8. That's it. 8. Respiration.
Then quickly collecting a myriad of samples. DNA material, because these wolves will be pioneers.
That's the heart rate.
Scientists want to track their many descendants as they take back ancestral ground in the United States.
The wolves are providing a lot of gifts to us, in a sense. And so we're collecting samples for other agencies that can learn from these wolves. I'd guess 2-year-old.
Just as they're starting to come to, the wolves are taken to individual cages. They're home for the next few days until there's enough for a full shipment to Idaho and Yellowstone. They'll stay calm in here, though obviously a bit confused. After all, just hours ago, they were roaming the wild. Now they're the object of curiosity, and they have no idea about their new place in history. The teams are doing well. More wolves are brought in and processed. For the hunters and the handlers, many days of hard work have paid off. They too have a place in history, though in many ways, their job has just begun. The women and men braving this bitter cold learned perseverance long ago. They fought years of political battles to bring wolves back, and they lost time and again. Finally, Congress had come through with just enough money. This would be the second and final trip to gather wolves from Canada. Literally at the last minute, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service suddenly had no money. But the wolves have friends in the private sector too, who surprised the government with an offer to pay.
It took a while to get a cooperative agreement signed because they had never had a group approach them to give them money before.
41, heart rate?
It was a call to arms. They tried the internet, a mass mailing, and countless phone calls. They raised $50,000 in just 3 weeks.
We have paid for everything from the veterinarian supplies. We've done the helicopter fees, aerial surveys. We paid for the radio callers. Getting ready to start a bag for the...
Suzanne Laverty ran the money drive for the Wolf Education and Research Center in Ketchum.
This project's taken 20 years to get to this point right now. If we had to go back to ground zero, who knows how long it would have taken to get it rolling again.
In fact, private money was already giving this effort a big boost. The loudest opponents of this program are ranchers who fear they'll provide too many meals for the wolves. Enter the conservation group Defenders of Wildlife, again offering to pick up the tab.
We were going around asking people what it was going to take for them to accept wolves in the area, and they said the one thing that was really bothering them was going to be the impact on livestock, and we said, fine, we can fix that. We'll pay you for what that damage is going to be. And
that promise could run into the tens of thousands of dollars, not to mention all the free labor back here in Canada.
Heart rate 33.
This makeshift medical lab is full of soldiers from the wolves' private army, like this doctor, a kidney specialist from Yale University's medical school. Or this computer engineer on vacation from Micron in Boise.
Used to be a lot of wolves in Idaho, but they were systematically exterminated. You know, I think that was a mistake, so I'm pretty excited about correcting that mistake and getting them back into Idaho.
Everyone's hard work is about to pay off. The wolves arrive in separate crates. It is the middle of the night at the Missoula, Montana airport.
I believe it's 5 females and 7 males.
Some of the wolves are headed for central Idaho, another group to Yellowstone National Park.
You can liken Yellowstone to a big puzzle, and one very important piece was missing.
Yellowstone is a national treasure. Biologists say disease and other weaknesses have been allowed to flourish in Yellowstone's elk, deer, and bison populations, with fewer predators in the park. On a horse-drawn sleigh comes the missing piece of the puzzle.
The objective is really very simple. Put wolves back to the Yellowstone ecosystem because they belong there. We'll be able to say more often, we're going to let nature take its course.
Checking this out.
The wolves will be kept in special large pens for acclimation.
See that?
And several weeks later, they are getting closer to their ultimate release.
The wolves get pretty agitated when there are people going in to place the food inside the pen.
Biologists try to provide a good-sized mule deer about every 3 days, but they aren't here to make any friends. In fact, they'd prefer it if the wolves learned to truly dislike people while still in this pen.
Looks like he's dragging out old bones and things from the last feeding.
If anything, we're reinforcing the wolves' natural fear of humans. They don't like people, period. And this experience going in with them in the pens reinforces a kind of negative attitude they have about us already.
But there are new concerns over another of the packs released in 1995.
We're making a den for some pups.
Biologists are about to do something they hoped to avoid. They are recapturing the Soda Butte pack, which is spending way too much time outside the park's borders.
We are confident we got all the pups.
Those wolves created a wolf den on private property, too close to cattle and other potential trouble.
We're only doing this because the population is so very small. If we had 6 packs in place, we wouldn't have moved the Soda Butte pack. Scared, doesn't know where it is.
The pups are a sign that the wolves are welcoming their new surroundings here in the United States. The youngsters are understandably frightened. They'll stay in these enclosed dens while other adults in the pack are captured.
That, fellas, is one healthy wolf.
They will all be taken to the middle of the park to continue reproducing and to continue offering valuable information.
Where do pups go that are born here and grow up and strike out on their own? It's important that we document how the population spreads out so that we can help the regional residents, the local folks, understand what it means to have wolves in the Yellowstone ecosystem.
And here in Yellowstone, there are great hopes for a new natural balance and a new appreciation for nature itself.
I guarantee you we will succeed. We will give the American public what they have asked for so long, and that is a wolf population in the Yellowstone ecosystem. You will be able to come here and hear, in these valleys and forests, the howl of the wolf.
When wolves roamed the Northwest 200 years ago, they did so practically free of natural enemies. Apparently, just the way nature wanted it. A predator, high on the food chain, culling the weakest of those below. And it's hoped that in places like Yellowstone and Glacier National Parks, nature's formula will finally be restored.
It will take a long time before wolves are doing what they should be doing. This is a very small population right now, and they won't have the tremendous effects for a while yet. But rest assured, they will have tremendous effects, and they will be positive effects. This system will run like it was always meant to run, now that the wolf is back. There's 15,000 elk on this northern range right here where we're looking, and it stretches well to the east and well to the west, but the wolves have access to a huge number of elk. Gee whiz. I think it's pretty clear what you're going to eat.
But the issue may not be what the wolf will do with the ecosystem in these parks that are nature's time capsules. No, the issue may be the effects the wolves would have in the very different system that is just beyond the park's unfenced borders. This is a system that includes people's livelihood and their way of life.
Ranchers aren't, I don't know, all the old westerns and big cattle barons and all that. Most of us are just trying to scratch a living, and it's more of a way of life than, we aren't here in it to get rich, because you sure aren't going to do it. And but it's a good way to bring up the kids, and it's a good place to live. And
J.T. Meisner is a cattle rancher in Montana. He lands somewhere in the middle of this conflict, somewhere between loving the wolf and hating it.
Would you like one of those for a pet?
J.T. has brought his kids to see and appreciate wolves that will soon run free in Montana and in Yellowstone. But J.T. is also worried these same wolves may eventually go beyond the natural prey and attack his pocketbook.
No, there's enough room, but if you're going to have wolves, you're going to have to control them, and that, a lot of times the control means pretty permanent situation, for some of them, and that's just going to be. You're going to have to
killing them or whatever.
Yeah, you're going to have to kill some of them.
There are more than a few cattle and sheep ranchers in Wyoming and Montana and Idaho who are quite happy with the eradication of the past and to this day wish it had worked once and for all.
Tried to kill all the wolves they could, and of course we're thankful they did, and wish they'd maybe got all of them, but it's at that time they were a threat to their way of living and their lives, I guess, too.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is working hard to keep wolves away from cows as much as possible, to keep them focused on their natural prey. but it is a delicate, uncertain goal. There are places in North America where wolves and cows have been living side by side for a long time. It is back in northern British Columbia, where thousands of wolves roam the mountains and valleys, and they regularly run into large groups of cows like this one.
Well, they'll bunch up too. They'll bunch up.
This herd belongs to Pat Shelton, a longtime cattle rancher near Fort St. John. He sees fresh wolf tracks about every 8 days on his property. But as for the number of wolf kills,
about twice in all the time I've had cattle. Like I've only had cattle for about 20 years now, but about twice is all I know. Yeah, we have just as much trouble with bears as we do the wolves.
Pat does say he would rather ranch without the wolves in his backyard.
No, we just haven't had any trouble.
But his longtime ranch hand says she doesn't worry that much either.
The time I saw that wolf, he was out right where those cows are feeding, and he was right up amongst the cows, and I thought he was a deer. He was just moving through them, and they didn't even lift their heads up and look at him. So they haven't been harassed very hard.
But can these two experiences be compared? There may be a great deal more indigenous food here in Canada than in many of the places wolves will be repopulating back in the northwestern U.S. Already, this new integration of wolf in cattle country has been dealt a few setbacks. It has been tested. Cows are being killed, and people on both sides of this battle are watching closely what happens next.
Well, the program was designed to allow wolves to recover, but not at the expense of livestock producers.
Someday, hunters may do it for them, but for now, it's the government biologist who is trying to keep everyone happy, trying to separate the good wolves from the bad.
As long as everybody upholds their end of the bargain, wolves are going to be welcome back in the West.
The gray wolf comes back to the northwestern U.S. protected by the Endangered Species Act. And that normally would mean anybody who harms a wolf would face serious consequences. But this time, on behalf of cattle ranchers largely, the rules have been changed.
The wolves were here about 45 minutes ago.
In a meadow tucked in mountains above Helena, Montana, government agents are stuck between a rock and a hard place, and they're taking home video.
We got bites on the bottom side.
The trained eye sees conclusive evidence, deep bites and broken bones. This calf died in the jaws of wolves.
That is classic hemorrhage.
Not the first and not the last. Like the wolf, man slaughters for his food too, and beef is big business in Montana. The wolves in the meadow took money away from third-generation rancher Tom Carey Jr.
It's not the wolves' fault they're eating beef. They're doing what's natural for them. But it just isn't a place for wolves.
Wolves were captured, some out in that meadow and then some in that timberline over there.
Carter Niemeyer is the man in the middle. He works for a federal department called Animal Damage Control. Special rules for this relocation effort say wolves who kill cows get one more chance. So Carter is setting some non-lethal traps.
Get them one at a time. Yeah.
Within a couple of weeks this past summer, 5 wolves were trapped and sedated on the meadow, where Tom Carey's cows graze every summer. As this alpha male pack leader was taken away, Carter's home video camera captured sounds to chill your spine. The rest of the wolf pack is hidden among the trees, howling for the alpha male who will never return.